Welcome to the Author Roundup. This special segment of the Book Connection show features up-and-coming indie authors who sit down with us and talk about their recently released books. Join us as we chat with our next guest author. Hi there, my name is Emma, and I will be your host for today's episode. Thank you for tuning in today because we have a great guest. His name is Billy Peterson, and he is a self-published author of his book, From the Starting Gate. Billy is a former world champion jockey who knows what it takes to succeed in life. Please welcome Billy Peterson. Hi, Billy. How are you?
Hey, Emma. I'm doing good. Thank you.
Good. Yeah, so your book was published in May. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. A lot of hard work there.
Yeah, was it? So yeah, can you tell us a little bit more about it?
You bet. So it was an idea to follow up a little bit from my first book that I published on my own, and I published that just on Amazon. That's where it's available. That book is Pursuit of Millionaire Status. And I've always had the background in finance and helping people accumulate money and wealth. And I felt like it was time for me to share my knowledge. So I wrote that book, and I learned a lot about the process of writing and what it takes. And then, of course, the bigger step is getting it out into the world where people are actually going to read it. You know,
Right.
I think that was what's held me back all along, is not fully believing that people would care what I had to say. And until I stumbled across a book that talked about writing a book, or helped people who had that inclination, help them decide how to get over the hump and what it took to get the book into the world. So that encouraged me. It gave me motivation. It told me that even my ideas, even if they'd been shared and other people had written thousands of financial books in the past, that my words mattered too.
Right.
So it gave me the confidence to write that book. And then a few years later, even though that was a very challenging process, I decided I'm going to try that again. I think I can do a better job this time. So I wanted to lay out more about wealth and more stories, and how that might resonate with people, how people are definitely struggling, how people are maybe led down the wrong path in this day and age with regards to building wealth. And I see it over and over again with people taking monstrous risks and bets on things like crypto and things like meme stocks, or all kinds of goofy things that people think are so-called investments that end up losing a lot of their money. So I feel like I needed to share my experience, my knowledge about these kind of concepts and what really works, what's proven to work over the long term. And then also add in the couple other areas that I think are important in this day and age too, which is our health and how many of us are suffering in that department. And I have some strong feelings about that. Wanted to share after going through my own struggles. And then finally, what I call manifestation of miracles, and how they come about and why, and how the universe really is such an amazing thing. And if you can tap into those frequencies of what's available to you and just believe in it, and the power of the subconscious mind is truly unreal.
Yeah, so you had a little bit of imposter syndrome, like most of us do, about, certain things at first, but I'm glad you overcame that for sure. And yeah, and it's always hard, for authors sometimes, to like feel like there's, a lot of like, especially nonfiction, like you said, like there's, a lot of like topics. But I mean, I would say like, even if you can impact, like a few people or one, with your knowledge, then it's always like important and needed for sure. So can we get like a little bit into your book, From the Starting Gate, and how it relates to your professional jockey career? So
You
if
bet.
I understand correctly, you've had an incredibly successful career as a professional jockey before transitioning into finance, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So how did your experiences as a jockey influence your approach to things like wealth management and achieving success in both fields?
Right. I think there are some interesting corollaries there. When you're thinking about a jockey, most people are thinking, and this is just maybe sad to say, but jockeys aren't considered to be the most intelligent individuals. I mean, and a lot of that I think is universal across all athletes, and thinking, oh, they're just a dumb athlete. They don't have anything to add here. Why would I trust that person with what they're telling me?
Yeah.
And so it was a definite, it was an obstacle to overcome that roadblock, kind of that connotation, that image that people have. But I'd always had a passion for finance and economics. So even while I was writing, during my writing career, I was pursuing my degree. So going to college, learning about economics, finance, the world. I was really fascinated with investing. And I started
Mhm.
investing when I was really young, 14. And that
Oh,
happened
wow.
because some gentleman here in my hometown who my father knew very well and who I'd always see at the local coffee shop, he took an interest in me back then. He knew I was making a little bit of money as a jockey in my early career, just at 14 years old. He just kind of
Wow.
took an interest, asked me questions and what I was doing with my money that I was making. And I told him proudly, I'm putting it in the bank. And he
Yeah.
said, well, that's not such a good thing. And of
Mhm.
course, that opened my eyes to the whole world of what else is out there. I didn't know there was anything out there other than banks.
Yeah.
So he told me to come back, and the next day, and he would show me what he meant. And I did go back, and I'm proud of myself for actually listening to him and for taking his advice to heart, because he showed me what the investment world was. He showed me what mutual funds were, and he actually took the time to bring me an investment application form so I could send in and open an account with a mutual fund company, clear back in those days, and then start drafting money from my bank account to go into the mutual fund account, which was a whole new thing. My dad didn't even do that. No one in my family had ever done that. I think silently my dad was kind of laughing at me like, oh yeah, you're going to learn a lesson here.
Yeah.
But it started me down that path, and then I became really really interested in it. So time goes by, I'm making more money, things are going better for me in my career, I'm adding more money, I'm seeing this thing grow, and I'm not having to do anything. This is the crazy part.
Yeah.
It's passive investing where you don't have to go out and do physical labor, and you see your money growing for you and then accumulating. And it doesn't happen quickly, but if you're patient and let it just do its thing, the compounding of interest is the eighth wonder of the world. So we see those compounding interest effects start coming in, and the account values start growing more and more.
Yeah.
Then people in the horse racing industry start asking me, because they see me studying the Wall Street Journal and things like that. They're asking me what I'm doing and how to invest. And so I started to help people in the horse racing industry with their investments and with their ideas about retirement planning and tax planning, all those types of things. So it was just seemed like a natural fit for me when another executive who I'd met at Hollywood Park Racetrack in California, he he sat me down one day and said, "Why are you a jockey?" And I said, "Because I'm
Mhm.
good. I like it."
Yeah.
And he said, "Yeah, you're good, but you're crazy. You need to get out of this business and get into a career that has long-term potential. And so
Mhm.
you're not going to get beat up so much." Well, I thought about that for a while, and then an injury occurred, and I was
Oh,
severely injured on a horse going into the starting gate. It wasn't even during the race; it was going into the starting gate. The horse didn't like what was happening and decided she
oh,
had wanted no part of that starting gate. So before I could even react, she flipped herself up and over backwards and landed flat on me. And for a minute there, they didn't know if I was going to be paralyzed. I was at the hospital, and for actually a 2 days period, I couldn't feel my legs.
oh
And the
my
doctor
God.
said, yeah, it's touch and go. We don't know if you're going to get this sensation or feeling back. What had ended up happening was all of my nerves were damaged, and my entire pelvis was shattered. All the ligaments attaching my upper half to my lower half were were ripped off. So I couldn't move, I couldn't sit up, I couldn't roll over, and
Mm.
it was very traumatic, and it made
Yeah.
me really rethink what I'm doing. So I said to God, I'm going to please let me ride again. And
Mhm.
if you let me ride, just finish this year out, I will retire. Let
Mm.
me walk again.
Yeah.
And I recovered from that by the grace of
Mhm.
God. And I moved on and won some really big races that year. And
Oh,
then
wow.
I retired from my career at the kind of the height the of my career. Was really a shock to everyone who found out
Mhm.
about it. But it was
They
time
knew
for me.
all this time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was
Oh my
time for me
goodness.
to move on. And I knew that I wanted to move into this career. And I'd already
Yeah.
started to help people and had a clientele already lined up.
Oh, wow. Yeah, well, at least you already knew, like, kinda what you wanted to do, right? Because you've had this passion since you were 14 and the person that influenced you, to get into investment. So that's nice that you knew your purpose, after jockey and things like that. So, wow. And so in your book, you emphasize not only creating wealth, but also sustaining it. What are some, like, key habits and strategies you believe, like, are essential for that type of
Yeah.
financial success, would you say?
A lot of people have bad habits when it comes to
Yeah.
finance. And so we see that all through my career. I've been doing what I do now for 28 years, a financial professional. And so I own my own firm and help a lot of clients. We manage somewhere approximately $450 million for clients all over the country.
Mhm.
But I started out with no assets. When I retired as a
Mhm.
jockey, I had no money that I was managing. And it was a
Mhm.
very big struggle to get people to trust me from being a jockey, like I mentioned,
Right.
an
Yeah.
athlete, to
Mhm.
someone who they could trust to handle the most, maybe second most important thing in their life, their
Yeah.
family and then their money.
Yeah.
Of course, the idea of how to sustain it or keep it, it's not it's not intuitive for a lot of people. They think once I have it, I'll always have it. But I've seen so many people who were given money
Mm.
or received that money where they didn't really appreciate it or respect money, and within a short period of time it was gone because
Mhm.
they just spend it. They just don't understand how money needs to be respected, and it's like a
Yeah.
tool. And if you use that tool incorrectly, you're going to hurt yourself. Like credit
Yeah.
cards, I tell people, if you cannot control yourself on credit cards, you do not want one. Get rid of them, cut them up.
Yeah.
It's just all over the place. They don't get the feeling of what they're doing when they swipe a credit card. There's no pain attached to that, and
Yeah,
so they
there's no
don't really
money
see it.
there, it's just impulsive.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like I have to have this product or this item or whatever it is that I'm buying.
Yeah.
A lot of people
Mhm.
can't stop, so they're their own worst enemy. And that's why I always tell people, you can kind of roll your eyes at having a financial advisor, but I'm telling you, it's like having a life coach or somebody that's going to keep you on track or on the path. You take a lot of pride. We all do. We have certain things in our life that seem like huge priorities, and we want to have help making sure we don't screw that up. And so think about your health, for example. Most people, they want a professional. There's something bother them, they want to
Mhm.
run in and have a doctor give them the all clear, tell them what's wrong with me, hey, what do I need to do to get
Mhm.
better. Hopefully you get the right doctor that doesn't just sign you up for a lifetime of prescription drugs, and we'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah. Yeah.
but but what I'm saying is a financial advisor can make all the difference in the world. And I'm not tooting my own horn. I'm just trying to tell people out there in the world, you need help to have to put yourself on track to be successful with your
Mhm.
financial goals. Because if you don't have a plan, you don't have somebody holding you accountable, how are you going to get there? And that's where you see a lot of divorces, and people have
Yeah.
all kinds of
And
trouble
mhm.
relationships because one
Mhm.
wants that and the other wants the reward, the instant gratification. So you
Mhm.
have I mean, divorce, the number one cause of divorce is financial problems, which is sad, but
So
we see
sad.
it all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's really true what you say about mental health, right? Like, I feel like mentally, if you're not healthy, that's where, like, impulsive spending comes in, and yeah, before you can really be if you don't have a great relationship with money and spending, which should start at, like, a young age, like your parents should teach you about, like, spending and money and respecting money, like you mentioned. then before you can, be successful and wealthy, then I think your mental health has to be, like, good before you, get into like success and things like that because, it's so important.
It's critical.
Yeah.
Yeah, people that don't have an appreciation just for their life and a
Yeah.
comfort level with what they have always want something more. They're always chasing something, thinking that's going to provide them the happiness, and they
Mhm.
find out that that's not not true. So they can
Right.
keep spending right into the depths of hell, and they would
Yeah.
never find the happiness that they thought they were going to get. So
Yeah.
it's all about just resetting the way you think
Mhm.
about yourself, your life,
Yeah.
what you have, and accept it and be grateful for it. And I find that kind of leads into the topic of the power of the universe and
Mm.
what you set your focus on. Because if you set
Mhm.
your focus all the time on what you don't have,
Yeah.
then you end up with more of what you don't have. So if
Mhm.
you set your focus on what you have and what you're grateful for, it's so weird because more of that will come to you. So the gratitude factor and the power of your focus and your mind,
Mhm.
it releases that magnetic force that brings more of the same your way.
Yeah.
And most people don't get that. I think the vast majority of the population never realizes that in their entire life.
Yeah.
And that's the sad but cold
Yeah.
hard truth.
Yeah. I like that perspective too about connecting to the universe, and you mentioned miracles and manifesting. How can readers learn to tap into this connection in their everyday lives, would
No,
you say?
there are a lot of great resources out there that are much
Mhm.
smarter than me on describing this. But what I've learned and doing a year's worth of studying this, because I I came to a realization during my struggle many years ago with health issues
Mm.
that there are powers far beyond what we even realize, and
Right.
primarily they exist in our subconscious mind. You know, they
Mhm.
say that we only use about 10% of our brain, and that's what they mean is that that's the conscious level. You know,
Mhm.
imagine if you could tap into the other 90%. Imagine what we could do as humans, what we are capable.
So yeah, you hit on it a little bit about manifesting and, this kind of way of thinking that you could say you've talked about manifesting miracles in your book from the starting gate has made a huge difference in your lives and others. How do you define manifesting and miracles in general?
It's what you put your intentions to. So if you put your intentions toward a certain goal and you
Mhm.
visualize that goal and you stay with it and you don't doubt, you don't try to control the outcome, it's
Mhm.
weird how the outcome will come to you. And I write a whole host of stories in the book about the miracles and how they've occurred and how they continue to occur. And so that you actually get to the point where if you don't have these things occurring, that's there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
So you're not living a life with passion and with happiness
Mhm.
and with gratitude. Because seriously, if there's something in your life that you want, and these books are everywhere. I mean, the whole our whole society is
Mhm.
consuming these kind of books right now. They can't get
Right.
enough of them.
Super popular. Yeah.
So you study these people who understand what's going on. And I mentioned Dr. Joe Dispenza. Eckhart Tolle is another great resource there. And all these people are just they know in deep philosophical level that we don't know a lot of things about the mind. And I wish that and I'm going to go again into the medical, I wish our medical community would stop for a minute and think that way too, because
Yeah.
all they want to do is treat body. They don't want to think mind. Mind is far and away the
Everything.
most powerful thing. So the miracles, I mean, there's energy out there all around us. Now,
Mhm.
now most people will brush this off because they can't see it, they can't touch it, they can't feel it, they can't document it, they can't do a lab experiment on energy in how it's bringing in repelling or coming to you. But it's there and you can feel it. You know, you can feel it when somebody's excited, when you have people cheering you doing something. The energy comes. You get more power. You have
Yeah.
actually more physical power in your body when you have that energy flowing to you. It's a weird thing,
Mhm.
but you believe in gravity, right? You
Mhm.
can't see it. I
Yeah,
mean, you know that
exactly.
it's there,
Yeah.
but that's what people don't get is they don't realize the energies and the frequencies are everywhere. They're
Mhm.
everywhere all around us, and we just have to attract and find that right frequency for whatever that outcome is that we want. Now you can't control it right to the point of it's all going to happen like this. You've got to visualize the end that you want. So if it's, for example, some people say I want to be financially independent, I want to have resources, I want to have my own home, I want to get
Mhm.
married, I want to have a relationship with somebody I love. That's the vision. Now you can't decide who it's going to be or where that house is exactly going to be or uh,
Yeah.
what it's going to exactly look like. You can't have every perfect thing nailed down. But if you just visualize and then let the universe do the work, let the universe do, you have to trust it. And I learned this the hard way. So many years of struggle for me is trying to make things happen. And I'll
Yeah.
say there were moments for me, if I would have just stopped and paid attention, even when I was a jockey, all those things were happening. All those things were happening for me, but I just didn't understand. I just felt like, well,
Yeah.
I'm just good, I'm really good. But you know what? That wasn't what it was. It was my mindset and my belief, and there was no doubt in me. There was no, oh man, am I gonna make it? Am I gonna be successful? I had
Mhm.
zero doubts like that.
Mhm.
None. Even when I had major setbacks, hospitalizations, breaking my legs, all kinds of injuries and problems that a lot of people would have said, never mind, this isn't good. I don't want to do this anymore. I just didn't ever think failure. And
Mhm.
so then all these successes come to you. And, I won the most lucrative race in the world. And that was
Wow.
always the race I wanted to win. Even from a little young boy, I always watched this movie about that particular race. There was a movie, it's called Casey's
Mhm.
Shadow. And I loved that movie. And I dreamed about riding in that race, just I wanted that. And
God.
I set that in my mind. So that's what I'm talking about, the visualization. Now I couldn't
Mhm.
tell, okay, I'm going to win it this year. I'm going to ride this horse. It wasn't like that. It was just that broad image of
Yeah.
this is what I want. And then guess
Mhm.
what? I went there the first year I was there. I rode in the race. I was the youngest jockey to ever ride in that race. And tragedy hit. The horse I was riding broke his leg and went down in the race. And I went down, and most times when jockeys go down like that, they are seriously injured or killed because you're going so fast and you have no way to protect yourself. So, I mean, miracle of God, I walked away. The horse had to be euthanized. It was a tragedy for me. The biggest race of my life, right? Remember I talked
Mhm.
about this is one I always wanted to ride in. Now I could have smoked and sulked and never, like, quit, give up on my dream,
Yeah.
but I didn't, and I actually just kind of went right back to work after I overcame that fear of the event. Hearing that knee snap kind of resonated and stayed with me for so long, and it was
Mhm.
terrifying, but I just went on
Persever
about my business again. And the very
Mhm.
next year, I'm back in the race with another horse, and we
Mhm.
won. And it
That's
was
awesome.
like the articles that we wrote, and I look back on them now, and I have all these 3-ring binders of all these articles and ESPN. I mean, it's a big race,
Wow.
and they said it was tragedy to triumph, and
Mhm.
the young man didn't quit on his dreams. And so those are the kind of things that, looking back now, how you realize that the universe is always working. You just can't
Mhm.
you just can't try to control the outcome.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting what you mentioned about having this vision and I mean, a broadness and not knowing specifics, but still, like, convincing yourself that it will happen, right? Because manifesting, it's like saying, "Oh, I will do this," versus "I did this," right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you're already convinced. And that's like yeah, like you mentioned, like, so incredibly, like, so many books about it, and it's really, like, popular, like, new age world way of thinking right now. So what inspired the idea for your book? Had you had, like have you written before? Or yeah, you mentioned you have written, another book, but even
Yeah,
before that, like, had you written when you were younger, or what prompted you to just
I
really,
wrote a
like
few articles. I didn't.
oh,
I
okay.
mean, I was never great. I never considered myself an author or a writer. It
Yeah,
wasn't that
yeah,
wasn't one of my young goals, but I thought I had some things to share. And every year
yeah.
I do what's called a financial literacy boot camp, where I and
Mhm.
my staff and everyone that works for me, we go up to the local university and we host a financial literacy boot camp for that day. Because again, I want to give back. Remember, I told you about the man, the farmer here in my town that taught me this stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, that's where I got it from. I want to give back. I want to give back as much as I can to these young students. So the high schools in our local area will bus their students up to us, and we end up with between 500 and 600 students for that
Oh
day.
my gosh.
And we'll break
Wow.
it out into a whole bunch of classes. And so we
Mhm.
have them the full day to teach them about financial literacy concepts like, hey, how do you avoid debt? How do you keep yourself from getting swept up in credit card debt? How do you negotiate buying a car? How do you put in a resume for your first job? What are the criteria that employers are looking for? How do you start investing? What's the smart thing to do there? All the different topics from banking to insurance to investing to debt management, HR, human resources, and on and on and on. And then we have a panel of business leaders that come in and people that all different careers who not
Mhm.
necessarily just business, but all sorts of different professions that have something to share with the students. Great 1 hour session because the students
Mhm.
now are asking questions of these people. So you might have a
Mhm.
nurse, you might have an attorney, you might have, a financial professional, or you might have, we've had all kinds of backgrounds, people that own all sorts of different businesses. And they
Mhm.
talk about what they did and what it takes to become successful and what they would recommend to people at the age they are, they're high school students. But most of them are they're juniors and seniors. They are getting to that point where
Yeah.
they're examining their life and what they want it to look like. But they need a little help. They want to ask questions. So it's a very big deal. So
Mhm.
so if you look at that, this is going to be my 16th year next year doing it. So I'm looking at doing that and I think, well, I should write a book to help these kids put it all together. But also not just for the kids. I think adults could use this stuff too.
Oh, for sure.
I should write a book. Now here I'm going to go back to the manifestation stuff. So I'm
Mhm.
putting this into my mind. I'm talking to my wife. I really should write a book. I should buy, but I missed talking about it.
Yeah.
But I kept thinking, I kept putting it into my subconscious mind. I kept thinking, gosh, how do I do this? I don't even know how to write a book. What do I do? That's such a daunting experience or question how to do it. So I go to a conference, Raymond James conference. This is what I do every year. I go to the Raymond James conferences. That's a firm that I work with and custody all of clients' assets. And at one of the breakout sessions are two guys there. Now you may have heard this name. It's Tucker Max. Tucker Max is a very well-known author who started a company called Scribe Media. And Scribe Media helps people write books, believe it or
Mhm.
not. So I'm in the audience there in this class breakout session, and they're talking about how to write your own book. Now imagine that's the first class I've ever seen on that subject. I didn't even know it existed. And he's got a
Mhm.
book. He's written a book that's how to write your own book. So he gives us out, everyone in the classroom, a copy of that. Now, to my knowledge,
Mhm.
I'm the only one that actually did anything with it because I
You're
took
like,
it back and
yeah,
I
you
wrote
actually
a
did.
book.
You're like, well, now I have to write it now.
Yeah, because it gave me the layout, the foundation of
Mhm.
here's what you do, here's how you do it. Even the really detailed things that you have to consider that I didn't know about, not
Mhm.
just writing it, not just that, but how do you get it into the world?
Mhm.
Who do you have to hire to help you along the way? Where do you find these people?
Mhm.
How do you get it on different publishers lists and on and on and on? You just had a great amount of help for me. And also just that motivation that I could do it because there's a
Yeah.
section there that says, don't think that what you have to say is unimportant. Okay. And it's
Mhm.
also about just just having credibility. So you write a book, it may be not going to be a bestseller, but it instantly gives you credibility in the world with
Mhm.
your community, with people that you're around, and within your career. So
Mhm.
now people kind of look at you differently. You might be more of an authority in that subject matter.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
that's the reason why I did it. And then,
Mhm.
I don't know if you've ever ran a marathon. Do you run? Do you do anything like that?
I I ran a mini marathon, a half marathon this year for the
Cool.
first time.
So usually the first thing that happens when you cross that finish line is you're so exhausted, you say, I will never do that
Crying.
again.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was my mindset after writing the first book.
Really, yeah.
Never going to do that again. But then a few weeks go by, months go by, and you say, hey, that was kind of fun. I think I could do better this time. I could improve my time, work a little
Yeah,
harder. Boom. I mean, that was the
yeah.
mindset that's changed.
Sure.
And I thought, I have more to share. I have a lot more to share. And I have a lot more knowledge than just finance that I want to bring and make available to people.
Mhm.
So that's when I started writing this book. And I actually was fortunate enough to get a publishing company. And so it made a lot of difference. They did a lot more of the work and helped me along the way. So Balboa Press published it, and
Mhm.
they're a subsidiary of Hay House. So
Mhm.
it's a big organization. They've had
Mhm.
I've had a lot of resources with them.
That's great. And so when did you start writing this book and when did you complete it?
This book, let's see, I want to say I started it in about June of 2023. So
Okay.
yeah, it
Oh,
took
wow.
me dang near a year. Doing a lot of, I'd write and I'd not like it. And then I
Yeah.
write a whole bunch and then I come back and read it and I want to delete a whole bunch. And I don't know, I reorganized the whole book many times. And then I did a lot more research on adding things. And I kind of just lived my life and wrote when I was comfortable until I got to a point where I
Right.
have to finish this. I want to keep going. So I'd lock myself in my office for, hours on end and write a bunch. And then I had a whole bunch of people help me with the editing,
Mhm.
hired some outside editors, had
Oh, okay.
other people read it, and then of course they gave me a lot of recommendations, and then I'd have to
Mhm.
start over. Basically, you need to do this. The whole formatting, the layout, you need to change the direction of how you're talking about these different subjects, put them in different
Mhm.
orders. And so, yeah, it took a long time to put it together, but I didn't quit.
Yeah.
There's times in there where you want to just throw in the towel and say I'm done,
Or
but
put it aside, yeah.
that
Yeah.
underlying motivation, just I don't, I'm not a quitter. I want to finish this thing, and
Mhm.
and that's what I did.
You did. And so how is your book laid out for our listeners, like, listening or watching? So is it like a balance of, like, your personal story and advice and financial advice? So how can readers expect to go through reading your book?
I lay it out in the three sections: wealth,
Okay.
health, and then I call it happiness. And I know that those three subjects have been mentioned and discussed at
Yeah.
nauseum. But I read a book called The Law of Success from Napoleon Hill, and he wrote this
Mm,
book 100 years ago, and it was a bestseller. It's still one of the best known books around, and
mhm.
he just wrote a lot about all the different areas of life and how to be successful in everything. And so much, I didn't even know that book existed. I promise you, until I was wrapping up. Everything was done on my manuscript, and then I'm looking around at books. I'm thinking, how did they display theirs? What are what
Yeah,
sections of it? So I go through Barnes and Noble, and boom, that was the first book I saw.
really.
Um, and I pulled it off and I bought it and I just read the whole thing, and it was amazing to me. And I thought, these subjects are not unimportant. These have been
Mhm.
around for hundreds of years. These three subjects, these topics right here, the pillars to a successful life, I call them. So
Yeah.
my book is laid out into those sections. So if a person is really interested in the wealth and that they don't care about the others, and they can read the wealth section. But I encourage
Mhm.
people to read it in order because it builds on itself.
Yeah.
I talk about those three because that's the order that I focused on them in my life. First was
Mhm.
wealth. That was my big thing, and as a young boy, and then
Mhm.
a young man, and it was all about that. And then when I suffered my own health issues and debilitating back pain that almost just ended me, And then I was
Mhm.
told that I had an incurable autoimmune disease, and I had 3 or 4 diseases going on that they told me I would never get better from. And of course, this is faulty medical advice. And I think that so many people are told that and they believe it and they accept it and they
Yeah.
think, well, the doctor said it, so I have it. So I'm never going to get
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
It's what you believe. Like I said before, it's what your mind believes and accepts. So if you
Mhm.
if you accept that, that's where you're going to be. If you don't accept that and you question it and you
Mhm.
decide, hey, is there a different way? Is there a different way out of here? And so that's the health section. There's so much in there, all kinds of things that people have healed from and recovered from, and what was considered incurable, what was considered, oh, you have all sorts of debilitations with your spine, your knee, you'll never be better, everything's wrong physically. Well, proven to be false again. All these things are recoverable. All those things that
Mhm.
we thought caused pain don't. Doctors that are finding out how to get well and how their patients are getting well are really understanding the mind and how the
Mhm.
mind continues to perpetuate those nerves and the signals that create the pain, and it won't
Mhm.
allow your body to heal because you're getting in the way of it.
So all of these things, so what switched your mindset? What helped all of
My
your
wife,
feelings?
my wife, who was way more open to this kind of thinking than I was,
Yeah.
and again at a different Raymond James conference, and I was in the deepest, darkest place of my life, and I could not
Mhm.
feel good. I did not want to be anywhere. I did not want to go
Yeah.
anywhere. I was an
Mhm.
absolute shell of myself, just
Mhm.
kind of existing, just getting around, miserable, angry
Yeah.
all the time, looking at people and being so jealous that they were happy. And I was not happy because I was in
Yeah.
pain every single day. Terrible. It would not leave. But she went to the conference and she always enjoys going to the a few breakout sessions that talk about health and nutrition and things like that. And so this one year she was at this session. We were in Las Vegas, and the session was a doctor who was talking about how the mind is the central system that controls everything in our body, from
Mhm.
disease to chronic pain. And he went on and on and on. And
Mhm.
this was new to her. She'd never heard anything like this before. And most people again kind of brush that off like, oh yeah, yeah, don't worry so much. Okay, whatever.
Of course, but I'm still gonna go to the doctor. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But he'd written a book and he just kept talking about to reset and just to reset your central nervous system to calm your mind, to stop living in that state of always pressure and anxiety and worry
Yeah.
about what's going on. So she went on her phone and started looking for his book. And the one she couldn't find his book, but the one that
Mm.
kept coming up was the one from Dr. John Sarno. And he had written a book on healing back pain. So she bought that book from me. And she bought another book from me from Schubiner, Dr. Schubiner, who had written a book about it was called Unlearn Your Pain. And of course, that
Yeah.
title alone, you think, well,
Like
I mean, this is quackery. I grew up on a farm. I don't believe in all this, woo woo stuff. So I looked at those books and she had them on my desk, and I was kind of mad at her for buying them because I think you don't understand how serious this pain is, Heather. I mean, I am in, but she knew I was suffering because I was so
yeah.
different. I was kind of going inward,
Yeah. She just wanted to find
but
something.
I didn't give him a chance until I don't know, maybe a week. And then I started reading the one book and I started maybe trying to understand it, but it still kept falling back to, well, a doctor told me I have this condition. A doctor told me I have this autoimmune disease. It creates the pain. They did a blood test. They did all these tests and they told me I have it.
Yeah.
So I kept going back to that. You believe it. You believe what you're
Yeah.
told. The more I stayed with it, though, the more she kept encouraging me to stay with that. The more I kept learning and over and reiterating and reiterating. And I finally decided I'm going to go see a doctor who knows about this stuff. I booked an appointment. So I flew from Utah to California, met with him.
Wow.
And that's when the shackles came off. He
Mm.
explained to me after an examination that I had been misdiagnosed, coming from a
Okay.
doctor telling you don't have it. So imagine I I left there, I got on my rental car and I started crying. I said, I have been set free. Now imagine had I not met with him,
Yeah.
where I'd be. I mean, if I hadn't continued to pursue it and think and try to believe that there is a way out of this, there is a path. I can get across this river. And
Yeah.
he set the way for me. And he told me that, you're fine. And once I let that sink in, it was
And
just
you're
a
more,
matter of a few weeks. And I just happened to just walking around one day and I noticed like I'm not in pain anymore. What the heck's going on? There's no pain in my
what?
pain. It's gone. So this is the kind of thing that people don't appreciate, and they wonder why I'm so passionate about this topic. That's that's the amazing part is you got yourself into that by
Yeah.
the way you think. So there's also a path out of that by
Yeah.
changing the way you think. Okay, so no
Mhm.
longer did I always want to pressure myself to succeed and do better and do better. It's type A personality. And Dr. Sarno
Sure.
paints it so beautifully in his book. He talks about the two personality types, the perfectionist and then the
Mm.
goodest. The perfectionist
Ooh.
always wants things to be better. I can do better. I can push myself. I'm driven. And you put so much pressure on yourself subconsciously. There's so much rage that the pot boils over. The goodest is the one who always suppresses their true feelings. They want to
Mm.
make everybody happy around them. Okay. They have to do
Mhm.
everything and make everybody's life better. And they're always going to be giving of themselves for the benefit of someone around them or others around them. And there's rage in that. You don't know it. You don't want your conscious mind won't accept it. Your subconscious mind just keeps it there, boiling over till sooner or later, it's got to come out somewhere. And it's
Yeah.
going to come out. It's something's going to trigger, and we're all going to be
Mhm.
convinced. Oh, it's because I hurt. I fell. I lifted something that I knew it that day. I felt it, in my back or my shoulder, and we're convinced that we're broken, and we don't let ourselves heal. And I'm just saying that this is the path to true healing. Be people,
Yeah.
please believe me.
Yeah. So you went past that hurdle and you wrote your book. What has been the nicest feedback and review about your book? What has your wife thought about your book?
Yeah, my wife has been a
Yeah.
huge help to me in writing. She read the manuscript a couple of times. She pointed out some things for me and improved everything along the way. She's been my biggest supporter. She's read the
Yeah.
book, was
That's
really proud of
amazing.
me for it. She's actually a mind body coach. She does this stuff for a
Is
living
she
now. Yeah,
really?
she works with
Oh,
people all
wow.
over the country, all over the world. She's got people in oh
Oh my gosh.
like
That's awesome.
Dubai and Argentina and England. I mean, there are clients that call her all all the time. I don't know. She's booked out, but she has so many people, and she's helped them get well. People that were bound by wheelchairs are walking. People that never thought they could get up again.
Wow.
All this stuff in all kinds of conditions, not just the thing I had. People that were bound by or laid up with migraines every day couldn't function.
Mhm.
Migraines are gone. Just working with
Wow.
her. She had a gal
That's
that that
cool.
had seizures. She'd have multiple seizures every day. It was like terrifying for her. Seizures are gone. Neuropathy and people with maybe anxiety or depression, but a lot of people with just chronic pain and they don't know where it came from and how it originated.
Yeah.
So that's all happened. I have had so many people just thank me. I'm getting a lot of people who are calling me and want me to be on their podcast, wanting me to, I had a guy, I was on his podcast yesterday who he has a company called the Pain PT. So he's a physical therapist. That's the PT
Mhm.
part. But he started his whole career in the physical realm, like most doctors. But he quickly learned that the physical realm isn't where the pain is staying. The the emotional realm is what's continuing and perpetuating the pain. So when we start thinking of the emotional aspects in our life, then we're going to figure out why the pain's there and why the
Yeah.
problems are there. And once we deal with
Yeah.
the emotional, pain's gone. Pain's gone. So you stop fueling it. You stop adding logs to the fire. And I've
Mhm.
had so many people just thank me for explaining that to them.
So, what advice would you give someone working on his or her first book, someone that's super passionate about, something like you are passionate about, health and wealth and things like that? What advice would you give them?
Well, if anything in life, it takes passion to be good at it, I believe. So you're going to have to decide what it is that you're going for. And I tell
Mhm.
students all the time, I tell my own kids all the time, don't go into a career that you don't love. even if it takes you a couple of times to figure it out. Find where your passions lie. Okay, what are you always thinking about? What are your
Mhm.
belief systems? Where is that going to lead you? What do you like to do? Is it helping people? Is it working with your hands? Is it working by yourself? Analyzing things? There's so many things that you can do, building things. So find that passion, and then don't be afraid to share that passion. So do your job with a smile on your face. I see a video one time with a little boy who's shining shoes, and everybody around miserable, and they're going to work, and they're just sit down, get their shoes shine, and they get up and they're
Mhm.
miserable, and they throw him a tip and they walk away. And this boy's whistling and singing and having the time of his life.
Mhm.
And you think, well, which one do I want to be?
Yeah, right?
You know?
Yeah.
And this kid had very little as far as financial, but he had everything when you consider the emotional part and what he was able to give others to brighten their day. So you find something that you love and then just go all in, and don't be
Mhm.
afraid to share that with others. And when you want to share what again, your words matter. So
Mhm.
write it down. Even if you need help, writing a book is an extremely challenging experience. I won't lie to you,
Mhm.
but I think we need people who are willing to share. And when I'm talking about that, I think that the biggest area in our lives in this day and age is sharing what we know, what we've found out about the faulty medical advice that we're
Yeah.
receiving. And so I
Mhm.
want more people to be learning about that.
Yeah. That's great. Well, Billy, is there anything else that you would like to share with our listeners and viewers today? Do you have any like social media or website you'd like to mention?
Sure. So my author's site is billypetersonauthor.com. I
Okay.
also have a podcast that listeners might want to
Oh,
tune in.
nice.
It's called Harnessing Your Wealth with Billy Peterson. And then my business website is petersonws.com. So the WS stands for Wealth Services. And that's our financial services business that you could find more information about, financial tools and what we recommend and how to set yourself up for success with investing. All those things are available. You can follow us on all the social media channels from YouTube to Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Peterson Wealth Services. So grateful for the time today, Emma.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining me, Billy. If you are interested in purchasing from the starting gate, head to balboapress.com where you can find Billy's book in our online bookstore. It also is available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, where you can find it there. And thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.